Okay, thank you. Namaste. Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here and this really lovely conference in this lovely university, and it's a great pleasure to be here. It's the first time in India, and today I would like just make a reflection with you, looking at two movements of which were born in 20th century, Hizmet and Focolare movements, and a comparative analysis of them, as seeing them as a seeing them as a catalysis for interreligious freedom in terms of their activities of interfaith, interreligious dialogue. The relation between interfaith dialogue and religious freedom represents one of the really interesting but yet understudied connections in contemporary religious studies and the sociology of religion. While scholars have extensively analyzed both phenomena independently, the mechanisms through which sustained interfaith engagement translates into concrete gains for religious freedom remains insufficiently studied. This paper attempts address this gap by examining these two faith-based movements, one Catholic, another Muslim, that have demonstrated remarkable commitment to both interreligious dialogue and the promotion and development of religious freedom in the contexts in which they are operating. The Hizmet movement, inspired by the Turkish Islamic scholar Fethullah Gülen, and the Focolare movement, founded by the Italian consecrated laywoman Chiara Lubich. And here, why I'm just focusing on this connection, because last year I was so much engaged in different levels in different countries and universities for the 60th anniversary of two important documents which are actually basics of interfaith engagement and the promotion of interfaith dialogue, because 2025 was the 60th anniversary of two landmark documents of Second Vatican Council, Nostra Aetate, Declaration on the Relation of the Church with Non-Christian Religions, and Dignitatis Humanae, Declaration on Religious Freedom. These documents, promulgated in October and December 1965 respectively, represent for some researchers a Copernican moment in Catholic engagement with religious pluralism and human rights. And as we commemorate just this anniversary, it becomes imperative to examine how these theological foundations have been translated into lived practice by faith-based movements operating in diverse cultural and political contexts. The question could be, yes, these are the Catholic documents and they are directly related to Focolare movement. What is the connection with the Hizmet movement? Because as we see in Nostra Aetate number 3, this declaration makes a direct invitation, especially to Muslims, to Muslim groups, to engage with them in 4 different areas. That is freedom, peace, moral values, and social justice. And if you see how religious freedom is translated into different parts of the society, we can find more relevance, and you see in different researchers, in different studies, in the books recently published, you see when we talk about interreligious dialogue, interfaith dialogue of Gülen movement, one of the important moments was, again, the private audience of Gülen with St. John Paul II in 1998. In that moment, also Gülen affirmed that the movement's commitment to interfaith dialogue, especially starting with the vision of the Nostra Aetate, and that is actually what I would like to. And personally, my work in interreligious dialogue, and including work with both movements in various capacities, and that's why this paper aims to offer more or less, with very time-limited version, then I will send you the whole paper, an insider-outsider perspective that combines participant observation with some sort of a scholarly analysis. Very briefly, the theoretical framework, the theoretical relationship between religious freedom and interreligious dialogue has been the subject of increasing scholarly attention in recent decades, but not particularly while we are trying to understand the nature of the religious faith-based movements. But of course, we remember Jose Casanova's seminal work on public religions provides a foundational framework for understanding how religious communities can contribute to civil society without compromising secular democratic principles. Casanova's concept of deprivatization, the process by which religions re-enter the public sphere, helps explain how movements like Hizmet and Focolare have navigated the complex terrain between private faith and public engagement. Casanova himself, in different articles starting at the beginning of this century, compared the idea of aggiornamento in the Catholic Church with the attempts of the faith-based movements in Islamic communities, how to reconcile the secular understandings of rights and freedoms with the religious assessment of rights and freedoms. And in one of the articles, he also specifically makes a reference to Hizmet Movement in this case. Again, another theoretical framework I find very useful, Michael Dreesen's comprehensive study, The Global Politics of Interreligious Dialogue, offers crucial insights into how state-sponsored and civil society-led dialogue initiatives function as instruments of religious engagement, especially in the case of Focolare movement. Dreesen's analysis of the Focolare community in Algeria demonstrates how grassroots dialogue can create spaces for religious expression, even in challenging political environments, and his theoretical frameworks, which stretch interreligious dialogue within broader theories of post-secularism and post-Islamism, provides conceptual tools for understanding how dialogue initiatives contribute to new forms of citizenship and religious pluralism. I skipped the rest of the theoretical part and just coming more, just two words about the complementary of Nostra Aetate and Dignidad Humanae, because I find it very useful to understand our discussion. And this Second Vatican Council's twin declarations, I call, on religious relations and religious freedom, represent a theological vision that continues to shape Catholic engagement with religious pluralism with a direct invitation to other religious groups around the world. While Nostra Aetate established a theological foundation for positive engagement with non-Christian relations, on the other hand, Dignidad Humanae articulated the Church support for religious freedom as a fundamental human right, asserting that the human person has a right to religious freedom, and that this right must be recognized in the juridical order of each society. And this, both documents just gives the religious background for religious communities, how can just, promote and further the idea of right to religious freedom, engaging with other religious communities, especially where they found themselves in majority situation. That's why for both cases, I prefer to focus on, for Hizmet, the years between 1994, 2014, the third 20 years of spectrum, just few examples, in which Hizmet finds itself as a faith-based movement in a Muslim majority country. And for the Focolare movement between 2004 and 2024, where Focolare movement is a faith-based movement that finds itself in a Catholic majority country, but furthering in both cases, both movements, interreligious dialogue, inviting around the table religious minorities, just furthering their situation in terms of public visibility, in terms of their engagement with the state, with institutions, and especially with other religious communities. Hizmet movement inspired by the teachings of Fethullah Gülen, as you know well, because just I skipped that. And the movement's approach to interreligious relations became more formalized and became more concrete in 1994 with the establishment of the Journalists and Writers Foundation, with Gülen serving as honorary president. And the foundation became the institutional vehicle for the movement's dialogue initiatives, sponsoring platforms such as Abant meetings, but especially inviting different religious minorities into this activities, just remembering the strict secularism that controlled religious expression in Turkey, limiting the public visibility of religious identities. Hizmet movement's dialogue initiatives served multiple functions for our debate, created spaces for religious expression within a secular framework without creating without creating conflictual situations, building bridges between Turkey's Muslim majority and its Christian and Jewish minorities, and positioned the Turkish Islam, Anatolian Islam, as a moderate dialogue-oriented tradition in contrast to more exclusivist interpretations of the Islamic tradition. As Paul Weller documents in his comprehensive studies of the movement, Gülen pioneered interfaith in Turkey at a time when such engagement was viewed with suspicion. In the 90s, years before events of 9/11 brought global attention to Muslim-Christian relations, Gülen met and co-organized events with leaders of Greek Orthodox and Armenian churches, Ecumenical Patriarch and the Armenian Patriarch, as well as Jewish communities in Turkey. And as already mentioned, his meeting with John Paul II, that was out of the context of Turkey, but also it transformed many relations in Turkish context and just facilitated the visibility of Christians in this dialogue context. Putting the idea, I mean, what happened in 9/11, because we just moved quickly to the Italian context. Because I just put 2004, but I can put also 2001. The Focolare movement, founded by Chiara in Trento, Italy, during the Second World War, developed a spirituality centered on unity that naturally extended to inter-religious engagement and an idea of universal brotherhood. While the movement's dialogue with Muslims began already in the 70s in Tlemcen, Algeria, its activities, especially in Italy and Europe, intensified significantly in the 21st century, particularly as immigration transformed the religious landscape within society, and also with the effect of the post-9/11 period. Here, I just briefly mentioned there are several meetings and engagements happened, and there's a high-level engagement of the movement, especially with Muslims, with Muslim minorities in Italy. Just two examples: at the meeting in 2010 in Loppiano, gathered 600 Christian Muslims from different leaderships of the communities, and also another meeting in 2012 in Brescia, putting together again almost 1,300 Christian Muslims as common paths for the family. Okay, I'm just moving to the conclusion. This comparative analysis that you could not hear everything about it, but you will read, hopefully, inshallah, of Hizmet and Focolare movements reveals the interreligious dialogue functions as a modern mechanism for mutual understanding between faith communities. It serves as a catalyst for religious freedom by creating social capital across faith boundaries, developing shared vocabularies for religious coexistence, establishing institutional networks that amplify minority voices, and demonstrating the compatibility of religious commitment with democratic pluralism. And the 60th anniversary of Nostra Aetate and Dignità Humana provides an occasion to reflect on how these foundation documents have been translated into lived practice, and the Focolare movement's development from its origins during the World War II to its contemporary global engagement exemplifies how Catholic movements have internalized and extended the Council's vision. Similarly, the Hizmet movement, as an interlocutor for the invitation of Second Vatican Council, confirmed by the private audience with John Paul II, drawing on different theological sources, and had developed parallel commitments to dialogue and religious freedom that resonate with the consular region. Of course, the future research should examine how these dialogue models can be adapted to different cultural and political contexts, particularly in regions where religious freedom is under severe pressure. The comparison between Turkey and Italy suggested while the specific forms of dialogue may vary, but the underlying mechanisms connecting dialogue to freedom operates across contexts as religious pluralism becomes an increasingly prominent feature of societies worldwide. The insights and the experiences generated by movements like Hizmet and Focolare will only grow in relevance and importance. Thank you for your attention.